Euromaxx highlights. In this edition, A Life for Art. Bruno Bruni lives and works in a former public swimming pool. Living in the past, an Englishman's obsession with the 1940s. Building the future. Atelier Brückner is leading the way with innovative exhibition designs. Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Robin Merrill.
And a warm welcome to the show. We begin with one of Germany's most famous portrait photographers. Helinda Koebl found her calling rather accidentally, and not until when she was in her late 30s. Her pictures have won her many awards, including Germany's highest honour, the Federal Order of Merit, and her latest book has also picked up a prize.
From young girls to older women. Her photos are up close and personal. She's taken intimate shots of famous faces like designer Wolfgang Job, former German Chancellor Helmut Kohl, or Josef Ratzinger before he was Pope Benedict XVI. Photos from the book by Herlinde Koebl, titled Mein Blick or My View, it won the Corine International Book Award. The book is the first to chronicle every phase of her 30-year career in photography.
I think when you leaf through My View, you can see that it was a very intense and exciting life. With a lot of positive encounters, I have to say. And you also see the different worlds I've been involved in.
Koebl in her studio, taking photos of a jockey for her current project. The 71-year-old is a trained fashion designer, but she taught herself photography. In the mid-70s, the mother of four took photos of her children, an experience that brought her talent to the fore and showed her passion for the craft. Over the years, people have always been her favorite motif.
Photographing people means you're constantly facing new personal challenges. Because you have to get people to open up. You have to deal with them. You have to get a sense of them and connect with them. You also have to give people something before you can take.
Portraits are Koebl's trademark. These photos are from her book, Children. The photographer often spends years on her projects. One of her most famous works is Traces of Power from 1999. For 8 years, Koebl met a range of different politicians once a year to photograph and interview them, including Angela Merkel, now Germany's Chancellor. The result was snapshots that give a window into how power can change people.
They smile in a friendly way, but they try not to let anything else from their inner being escape. So they retain an air of mystery. But at some point they also become part of the mask. They can't wear a mask from 8 in the morning until 10 at night without some of it rubbing off on them.
Koebl lives and works in Munich. Her first big project was a photo series on Bavarian markets in the late 70s. The Jewish synagogue in the city center is a place associated with what Koebl considers her most important work. In 1989, the photographer released her Jewish Portrait series, featuring pictures of Holocaust survivors. The youngest of the group was 70 years old at the time. Many have since passed away.
I see myself as a person who naturally seizes on topics, not all of them are German, though many are, that are socially important or reveal something about our culture and society.
And motifs like German living rooms. Koebl made her breakthrough 30 years ago with this photo book, a peek at private spaces. Several years later, she took snapshots of different bedrooms around the world.
I have motifs that others see as ordinary or banal, but I find something different in them and present them in a context where people think, aha, I've never seen it that way before.
Koebl doesn't consider her latest book a retrospective. She says her work isn't nearly finished, and the 71-year-old photographer is working on a pair of long-range projects, more shots of the world through her own special lens.
What great photos. There are most probably more paintings by Bruno Bruni on the walls of German living rooms than any other artist. This is because he believes, quite rightly, art is for everybody, and he paints for the mass market. Naturally, the results are controversial, with the critics branding his pictures as pure kitsch. But the fact is, he's still very popular and successful at the grand age of 75.
A message in a bottle on the stormy seas. It's been 30 years since Bruno Bruni painted his last landscape. The Italian artist is still searching for variety, but he stayed true to his signature style all these years.
You can understand almost everything I paint. There's no mystery. I can't paint an abstract picture. There have been so many movements and trends in the last 50 or 60 years. If I'd gone along with all of them, I'd have disappeared long ago.
Bruni rose to international fame through his drawings and lithographs, which earned him multiple awards. Whether in painting or sculpture, his favourite motif is the female form.
First, because it's the subject that offers the most variety. And second, I'm old, but I think I've still never understood a woman, but I keep trying.
Bruni lives in a converted swimming pool surrounded by his art. The building is more than a century old and serves as his apartment, studio and gallery. Bruni even has a small art collection of his own, featuring works by famous modern artists like Georges Grosz or Salvador Dali. Bruni converted and restored the spacious location a decade ago. There are still many details relating to the building's former use.
The swimming pool is still all there, but there's no water. This was for the soap if people wanted to shower back there. There are still a lot of odd little features.
Hamburg has been home base for Bruni for the past 50 years. He studied here and later launched his career in the city.
I came here because of a girl, of course. I was in England, where I met a girl from Hamburg, and then I came here. I realized that I had the opportunity to do whatever I wanted here.
Bruni's big breakthrough came in the early 1970s. His lithographs and statues were very popular, and several were mass-produced. Some critics dismissed his art as commercial because of its mass appeal. But for Bruni, the problem is elitism in the art world.
When things are reproduced, they're also inexpensive. Buying an original oil painting means spending a lot of money. Art should be for everyone, not just for these privileged show-offs who have money and think they're better than everyone else.
Today, Bruni sells his works through his wife's gallery in Hanover. He's reputed to be one of Germany's top-earning artists. He's also a boxing fan. He used to make meals for his friend, former champion Dariusz Michalczewski, before each match. Cooking is a hobby he's passionate about, and spaghetti is one of his favourite dishes.
It's a talent just like painting. Cooking isn't easy. You have to love it.
Bruni has also cooked for former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder, who was a guest at his wedding. His cookbook features both his favourite recipes and stories from his own
I was born there. My father was a railway crossing attendant. That's where I lived.
He started painting as a young boy in Gradara, a town near Rimini on the Italian Adriatic coast.
I'm happy whenever I can paint, because I learn something. In fact, when I'm painting, I really learn about what the old masters painted. And I probably need 200 or 300 years to achieve what they've done.
Art is his life, and even at the age of 75, Bruni has no plans to lay down his paintbrush.
And now for something quite unusual, a trip back in time. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in a different era? Time travel has been the dream of mankind since time immemorial. And now it seems that one man in England has cracked it. Or has he? Well, meet Ben Sansum.
Paying a visit to Ben Sansum is like travelling back in time to another era, the 1940s.
But you notice how they're worried. It's the night of the White Ball, and among the visitors to Cannes are the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. In case of war,
hello, Ben Sansum speaking.
The 32-year-old transformed his house into a 1940s relic.
Good. Splendid. I don't know, it's something about it's very cosy, it's very homely, things were built to last. I just love the music, the old cars, the age of elegance, as they used to say, Art Deco.
He's not alone. His girlfriend, Christina Bussum, has also come to share his passion for the 40s.
When I first met him through his friend, she said that he was into the 40s, but I didn't realise quite how much.
The couple live in Godmanchester, an hour and a half away from London. The small town has remained isolated from many of the changes of modern technology. It's perfect for Ben Sansum. When he first met his girlfriend, he was worried about what she might think.
I was thinking, she's an all-modern girl, and I'm thinking, oh, when do I tell her about my hobby? So I waited a little while till we became friends first.
This record player was a gift from his grandfather 20 years ago. It first sparked his passion for the 40s. Some things, like this chair, had to be revamped to fit the time period. Ben painstakingly converted his entire house. Even his chores are done the old-fashioned way.
If you had a lot of money or you didn't, I think people really cared about each other then. You know, there was a lot more sense of community, and family values were very important in those days, which is kind of nice. I don't think we've got it in Britain today at all.
Hello.
Hello, Dad.
Hello.
Come in.
Ben's dad comes over often. He grew up in the 1940s and he still remembers what it was like back then. When Ben redesigned the interior of his house 2 years ago, he took a lot of tips from his father, and even some original 1940s fixtures. Like this washboard.
Just to scrub up and down.
Yeah.
And it didn't get them clean. When you see other people doing it, you say, oh, there's another one from your planet.
I cringe when he comes walking down the street in his old 40s gear and everybody looking, you know.
Get embarrassed, don't you? You say, come round after dark.
Yeah.
He also washes his clothes in true 1940s style.
You're doing the act of a washing machine. You pound it for about half an hour, at least half an hour. It's a very hard work. It's good for the muscles.
The clothes are hung up to dry in the kitchen, which was often the warmest room in the house.
You take so much effort with everything. You're so connected to everything because today machines do everything, but in those days everything was done by hand and it was very labour intensive. So it does definitely bring you closer to things, I think.
But even Ben Sansum knows his love for all things 40s has its limits.
So this is my magazine rack. Looks very 40s, place to keep all your bits and pieces. But because it's actually 2010, I do cheat sometimes. I know it's not really the 40s. Sorry. And I've got a modern bathroom. I think at the end of that day, we just don't like being around modern things. If we see like a modern sofa or a TV or a computer, I hate it. I just don't like to see it. I have to cover it up or hide it away.
Ben Sansum works as a steward for a British airline, so his job takes him to new and modern places all over the world. But he always knows he can step back in time again when he walks through his front door.
And time now to meet someone whose career began at the end of the 1940s. Pierre Dinand is one of the great designers of perfume bottles. And some he's created for the likes of Yves Saint Laurent or Dior have become iconic. We met up with him in Paris, where he's still dreaming up new ideas after 60 years in the business.
A flacon is like a small house, Pierre Dinand once said. His name may not be famous, but his designs are known all over the world. His work has been a lifelong passion.
I've always done drawings. For me, it's a great way to express myself. If someone tells me about an idea, I have to put it to paper. It comes naturally to me.
Pierre Dinand studied architecture in the 1950s and then worked for an advertising agency. One of his clients was Hélène Rochas from the Paris fashion house Rochas.
A certain Madame Rochas said to me one day, "You're an architect. Would you have an idea for a perfume flacon?" I worked on my design for over a year. I knew it was my big chance. There wasn't much competition. It had to be a success.
His first flacon came on the market in 1959 and his career took off. Over the past 50 years, he's designed bottles for Givenchy, Dior, Valentino, and many other big names. Each time, he takes his inspiration from the designer's personal stories. In one case, he developed a special friendship with French fashion designer Yves Saint Laurent.
Saint Laurent was a very shy person, but an incredibly talented artist. He was amazing to work with. He was modest and yet demanding at the same time. Discreet and passionate. We could spend hours working together.
In 1976, the two of them traveled to Morocco. Yves Saint Laurent was one of the best-known fashion designers at the time. His new perfume, Opium, needed just the right bottle. Pierre Dinand came up with the design. Opium became the world's top-selling perfume aside from Chanel No. 5. But Pierre Dinand always stayed in the background.
It works well for me. After all, I'm only a designer in the service of a much greater designer.
Despite his modesty, he still enjoys the recognition he does receive. When the Paris five-star Hotel Les Maurice decided to display creations of all the top French designers of luxury goods, Pierre Dinand was, of course, among them.
Yes, of course, it's nice to be here and to be recognized for the work that you've been doing for over 50 years. But I'm not a star. The designers are the stars.
Back in Pierre Dinand's studio, he tells us about the material he uses for his bottles, one of the secrets of his success that he first discovered quite by accident.
Once, when I was playing golf, the ball broke apart and I found a wonderful material inside. It was a kind of plastic, but transparent and slightly elastic. It shimmered beautifully, but it wasn't glass. I first used it for Calvin Klein.
This plastic is now used as standard. Nowadays, Pierre Dinand's son, Jérôme, works with him. He decided early on to follow in his father's footsteps.
When I was little, my father always came home with drawings and told exciting stories about fashion designers. I rushed through my homework so that I could spend hours with him every evening drawing flacons.
Jerome Dinand could now easily manage the business alone. But Pierre Dinand is still passionate about his work. And at the age of 79, he has many more ideas that he hopes to turn into beautiful designs.
The Stuttgart-based Atelier Brückner designs exhibitions, trade fair pavilions and museums. And even though it was founded just 13 years ago, it's one of the leading companies of its kind in the world. With the advances in architecture today and in multimedia technology, the creative possibilities are endless. And many of their designs look like something out of a science fiction movie.
Architect and set designer Uwe Brückner is the creative genius behind all these projects. He knows how to design a space so that its dimensions and contents immediately draw in visitors. Like this Black Forest theme exhibition room at the Baden-Württemberg House of History in Stuttgart.
What we do is create a complete picture and atmosphere that appeals to all five senses. We don't just exhibit content, we stage it. So, for example, here you can hear forest sounds like cuckoos and smell fir trees. That's what we mean by scenography. That's what people like.
In the museum lobby is a map of Baden-Württemberg, showing how back in the early 19th century, Germany was made up of small independent states, each with its own ruler. Brückner makes this complex history accessible to visitors.
In traditional museums, there's always so much to read before you can understand what's going on. But with this map, the territories are marked, like Baden-Württemberg, and you can see who its ruler was. What we do is help the content speak for itself.
The designs are developed in his company's Stuttgart offices. 70 people from different countries and professional backgrounds work here, from architects, designers, light and sound engineers to art historians and cultural experts. They develop their ideas for new exhibitions as a team, first researching all the facts and then brainstorming to come up with a design.
I think it's really great that there are so many of us from so many different cultures. It's very enriching. We all contribute our own cultural input. I come from Venezuela, and some of my colleagues are from Italy. All over the world, really. And it's a very creative atmosphere.
The Atelier Brückner works on projects the world over. At the Expo 2010 in Shanghai, it created the pavilion for the Chinese State Energy Company. A multimedia show conveys the message to visitors that renewable energies are the future and that responsible energy choices can improve living conditions in the world's crowded cities. Atelier Brückner also worked on the trading floor of the German Stock Exchange in Frankfurt. The circular theme reflects the constant loop of daily trading. In 2008, the exhibition That's Opera toured the world. Featuring original historic exhibits as well as installations and interactive media stations, it depicted the various stages in the development of an opera. A book documenting selected international Atelier Brückner projects is set for publication. The page proofs have just arrived and the team are giving them a final once-over. Also on the schedule are talks about the group's next big project, Arabian Journeys, part of Saudi Arabia's massive King Abdulaziz Center for World Culture. Atelier Brückner will be designing a section of the complex in the middle of the desert.
It's being billed as the 8th wonder of the world, and we're very proud to be a part of it, right?
Absolutely, and we hope it's going to be huge.
The Atelier Brückner usually works on about 20 projects at once, so the team has plenty of scope to demonstrate its creative diversity.
If you want to find out more about the programme, go to our website at dw-world.de/English/Euromaxx, and there's other reports there too. That's all this time round, though. Bye-bye for now.